define inclusion, as Constance said, but a somewhat simpler definition is valuing diversity, giving to diversity the social and economic value that will cause it to show up as the contribution to humanity that it is. In other words, we're here to talk about value. Now, why would I put this picture? This is a woman who lived in the 1890s and earlier. She started in life as a poor woman and ended up being an empress in some small part of China. And she lived at the time when they were just inventing photographs. So this is the kind of photograph that everybody had to stand still for a long period of time. So they went to a lot of trouble to make this photograph. I put this in there because this woman, if she had been born rich, would have had her feet bound and would have grown up not being able to walk. And if she had become very, very rich, which I suspect she has, she would also have very long fingernails. And she would not be able to use her hands. In other words, she'd be just like me. Now, the point is that that was something to aspire to. She was a very, very happy woman that even though her feet were still not bound, she was able to get to this position. Yet in my world, this situation is considered a tragedy by many people. We are actually talking about what do you value and how do you value it. And museums have a lot to say about what's valuable. I want to give you a very brief introduction to a model of inclusion that I invented in 2009. The model looks at inclusion from the context of point of view. In other words, it's not a theoretical model. It's about how do I, the person who's been labeled, look at inclusion, and how do you, the person who's presumably including me, how do you look at it? And I propose that there are three distinct states. In state B, which is basic, the includers share presence with those with diverse characteristics, but no other changes are anticipated or tolerated. Toleration is the standard. Includers like their community as is and expect the included to adapt to normal ways and means and to get along as best they can. In other words, it's up to you, buddy, I don't really care. And the included want to get in there safely and to get done what they can do. In other words, I just want to get there, do what I came for. I don't care much about you. And I will express gratitude for an opportunity and work hard not to be noticed, not to cause difficulties. Can you read the next
one? I'll talk about it. State M is mechanical. In this category, everyone becomes identified by a label. Includers see that the marginalized are struggling demand equality, and actively seek out programs. The dominant feelings are victimhood and anger.
And then partnership, or state X. Possible, both includers and included recognize value in the gifts and contributions to access in all available cultures, characteristics, and experiences. The perception fades that there are two sides and a distinct boundary. Shared work is engaged to reap the benefit for and with each other. For why? In 2003, I realized I'm an artist. I've been an artist since I was about 12, but I didn't know it. And this is what made it obvious. Somebody showed me that there was a technique used in New Jersey where people would wear a laser pointer on their head, and with the light, they would track a light beam on the canvas, and the tracker with would follow the light beam with the brush and the paint. So, long story short, about a year and a half ago, I was invited to exhibit my paintings at the Royal Ontario Museum in an exhibit that was called Who's Drawing the Lines? Okay. And this is one of the artifacts. There was, and I quote on that word, artifact. There was an exhibit.
A poem. They said, she will never walk. She will die before she is 4, 6. She will always live with her parents. There is no point in her going to school. You will never have any friends. You will die before you are 30. Your kind belongs in chronic care. You can't travel. You will die within the next 6 months. You don't understand how it works. This isn't art. They were right. I never did learn how to walk.
So, why I brought the model up, the BMX model, is because when I was invited to put an exhibit in the Toronto, I'm a very needy kind of person, basic inclusion type of person. I'll go in, I'll do what I want to do with art and out. Because that's a common perspective for people who've been raised and lived in an inaccessible world. And the museum, the ROM, is obviously very young. Right programs, policies, resources, allocated by category, all that kind of thing. And Mike and I recognized that if they were going to understand what I'm capable of and what we're capable of as a partnership, Mike and I, he is my tracker, that we're going to have to jump on them. We're going to have to be very, very ready. So on the first meeting day of the project, there were 12 of them and 2 of us. But we'd already drawn, using the Smart Talk program, the entire exhibit, put all the paintings where they thought they should go, put the kind of text in the computer that we thought should be there. I was going to get to jump on these people. And they were blown away. And ready to listen. And within a very short period of time, we were both able to hear what each other's major concerns are. And you have no idea what my concerns might be. And I have done, or had done, at that point, about what the wrongs would be. So it became a very interesting process, a very interesting conversation. And I just want to give you a taste of the impact of that conversation. First of all, the wrong chose the oil painting I have. It's of my mother, and it's called Rita. They chose it as the flagship picture of the exhibit. Now, my mother and I had a very difficult relationship all of our lives, and she passed away about 5 years ago. And although we became very close, by the time I made this painting, I knew in my heart that she would never have wanted that kind of public exposure. So I was confronted just by that alone. And yet, having her as the flagship really altered my relationship with my mother, because I got to see how much she would have appreciated the fact that there really was an exhibit, even though she wouldn't have appreciated being the head of it. Next. And this one, this next couple, goes to the next couple. That's called Dirty Window. That's called Winter Morning. Slides here. Yeah, I think so. Okay, back up. Mike was my traveler for these paintings. And we actually went on retreat to make those three, and go back home. This represents a huge shift in the way I paint. And it happened because I could not get Dirty River to come together. It just wouldn't. And the exhibit was coming. And I needed to have this painting finished. And it was a long time process. But Mike told me once, a long time ago, he did some work with a cartoonist. And we changed our approach. And this is what came out. So I learned more about how to paint by the exhibit. This is called California Sandwich, because I did it with Michael there when he was hungry. But you'll notice it's upside down. Well, the rock hung it upside down. They were mortified. I wanted to change it. And I said, no, it's perfect. Just the way it is. Because every time a child or an uninterested adult would come to the exhibit when I was there, and they didn't know how to engage, I would say to the kid, go find the one that's upside down. And they would have a place to go. Next. And the one after. These two, that's a paper towel. Go back. And that's the painting that I made through the paper towel. Because it's that I use. I found out about a year after I started using it that people call it masking, but I invented it. Anyway, the Rock spent something like $1,500 putting the paper towel in a very specific frame where they take all the air and put nitrogen in. Well, it's only a piece of paper. What is it? I had a real shift in what I ought to value in my life.
I was the one who told her that I was keeping the paper towel. She wanted to throw it away. And now I have a $1,500 paper towel.
This one. We started over part of the design of the exhibit. And Cheryl, who unfortunately couldn't be here today, negotiated between me and the project team. And what we came up with in the end was to use the major line of this picture, which is called Cheesy Drizzle, as a way to, we put a stripe around the wall that looks like this painting, and we made it tactile so that people could come in and touch the exhibit. And so this represents a real conflict that we were able to resolve because people sat and negotiated between our different concerns. I wanted it to be child-friendly and visually friendly, and security didn't want people messing with the exhibit, right? So we were to the impact on me on the whole process was a real experience of effective teamwork. Thank you. Also, the experience of being understood, because my perspective on inclusion and accessibility is quite different from many people's. I don't care if you call me privileged. I am privileged. What I care about is that you understand I have a contribution to make. And the Ron was able to put that in such a way that probably 500,000 people got exposed to that idea. And exposed to the idea that it's actually in partnership that I am able to fulfill my life. There's very little I can do by myself. But together with other people, like a project team, with the Ron, there's a very big impact that I can have on the world. And guess what? I'm not the only one. And it's not because I'm so well disabled, but it's through partnership that's possible. I got real affirmation that I'm part of the arts world and the social change world. When the BBC published an argument that supposedly David Hockney started about whether or not it's really art if somebody else should do it, she turned to me to make a comment. religious organizations, government organizations, but the context of the wrong exhibit just shifting totally how people listen to me. And I met other artists working on this. This painting is called Splash. I met a woman from China who is also an artist. And through translators, she told me how this reminds her of a farm that she lives on near the Russian border. Now, I would never speak Chinese or be near the Russian border, but I got very connected to another artist, and we met artist to artist, not Chinese to disabled. Read this one. This is one representation of the impact that my exhibit had on the world.
This is an excerpt from the pamphlet that was given out for free inside of her exhibit. And on the back page, the conclusion. For museums, someone like Judith Snow presents a greater challenge than may seem apparent at first glance. The presence of her work signifies or demands a radical change in attitude on the part of museums. It means moving away from the role of transmitting a dominant, mainstream ideology toward a broader view that accepts and encompasses a wide diversity of opinion, condition, and worldview, and gives voice to people and groups that have hitherto been silent in these halls. The ROM realizes that this process will not be easy, but knows that it must pursue it nevertheless. A museum's life is also a journey.
So, the rest of the pictures here are just, we're going through them slowly. But what I really want to talk about, anyway, go through the pictures. This is vulnerability. What's this? Running flat. Running flat. Can't even remember. Oh, yes. Oh, that's good. One of the side trees, I believe. Raspberry prison. Blankets. Anyway, let's keep going. Keep going. If you missed it, you missed it. All right. My call to action for you, dear women. State X, the partnership state, where diversity meets diversity and really listens to each other. State X is inherently unstable. It is dependent on intentional action. And so, diverse partnership easily disappears. Moving marginalized has been dismantled. If you missed it, you missed it. Right? But the state M has the capacity to give sustainability. That's why human beings created some mechanical state of being, we all have cars or riding cars. We all drive on the right side of the road in North America. That's an M state condition. When you're in a car not as Ted or Joe, but as driver, and you've got to pay attention to the rule of the road. Otherwise, they'll get you hurt. But why do we do that as human beings? Because M is inherently sustainable. It gives us great capacity to have an organized society that will last for a long period of time. And museums belong to the world of that, to the mechanical world. And museums traditionally impart which would otherwise easily be lost or ignored. Now, those of us who are considered to be not normal, given whatever they may like, we are also easily lost or ignored in a society that is based in them. But the museum world has the capacity to give value where value would otherwise not be seen. And that's what I experienced, what Mike experienced, and the other people with the laser eagles are guild experienced, was that our value in society was highlighted and given a perspective that would allow other people to see it. Next. So